Here.
Craig Koshaw.
Here.
Matt Dyer.
Here.
Tyler Fulenkamp.
Here.
Wiley Sir.
Here. And we will suspend the minutes since this is a special meeting. We'll read our minutes from the last meeting at our next meeting. We're going to go right into the First Street discussion first, if you don't mind. Oh, we need to make the notice of this meeting a matter of record? So moved. Second. All in favor? Aye. All the same? Thank you, the motion's passed. Okay, I'll get that one of these days. Let's discuss, since the gentleman's here from Clark Beats, the First Street properties first, if we did. Is that right with you?
It may be quicker to get Hank
Okay.
in and out.
All right. Well, we're going to put you on hold for a minute, and we're going to discuss our resolution that we're writing in opposition of Senator Kenley's Senate Bill 88. Hank, why don't you have a seat right here so that we can record everything as we discuss?
Mayor, there was a video conference
Yes.
they had. You were there, Tim was there, Hank obviously was there.
Hank was there in person. We were on the video conference.
It wasn't a video, it was a phone conference.
For us that weren't there, how'd that go?
I'm sorry?
For those of us that weren't in that discussion, what was your synopsis of how that went over?
Well, the first meeting that I attended was on Monday at 10:30. And that meeting resulted from a lawyer that works in Lake County getting a meeting set up with Senator Kenley, in which he agreed to meet with people to talk about Senate Bill 88. The people who attended were district directors, there were some county commissioners, there was a guy who is the president of some part of the Association of County Commissioners. There were some county council members and the mayors of some cities, all of whom spoke in opposition to Senate Bill 88, which did not seem to faze Senator Kenley one bit. He is bound and determined that the solid waste districts come off the property tax rolls. And his thoughts are that that will open up the cap some so that municipalities and other local governmental entities can get a little more money. And the waste district will have to fund themselves in other manners. The property tax assessment levy was one of the mechanisms recommended in the original bill, which I think was
1240, I believe.
1240 back in the early 90s. That was one of the ways we were supposed to get our money. We get our money from a variety of sources. We get about 62% from the property tax and the other COITs, CVIT, other taxes. We get a good bit of money from the gate fees at the transfer station that we charge people to come in and dump. And then we make money on the sale of the recycled materials that we process, bale, and sell. We have made well over $100,000 a year at some points with that. This year we're going to make close to 50, maybe a little over 50 when everything's said and done. We're recycling the same amount, but we're not getting paid as much as we used to. So we have several sources of finances. If this bill were to pass as written, we'd lose the property tax, but we'd be allowed to have a fee. If county council would pass some sort of fee that we could then charge the households and I assume businesses in the county, a uniform fee, that would be another way that we could fund the operation that we now have. The problem is he will not allow us to attach that fee, is that the correct word, Tim?
It's a fee.
Fee to the property tax bill, which is now done by a number of waste districts who use that method to get some finances. That brings up the problem of now having to send out, in our case, probably in excess of 15,000 bills, generate those, send them out, receive them, and if someone chooses not to pay them, what are we going to do? I mean, it's really just creating a problem that doesn't exist. And in spite of all the opposition to that bill, he's not coming off of that at all. Now, Senate Bill 366 is another matter. That's by Republican Liz Brown up in the Fort Wayne area. And that is going to actually require that the districts be dissolved as of, I believe, 30 June 2017.
Correct.
And there's an amendment to it that now allows the commissioners to pass an ordinance that would reestablish the district, either as a single county district or as part of a multi-county district, in which case things would continue as they are unless Bill 88 would have passed, and then we wouldn't have the property tax levy. So it's a big paper drill that is unnecessary, and there is not one person, I think, other than Senator Kenley, who is in favor of it, and the few senators that he's gathered together that support that. That bill did pass out of committee yesterday. I sat through that entire hearing, which is a real experience that you don't want to have. But it only passed 7-6, which very much surprised Senator Kenley. He thought he had a lot more support than he did, and there were a lot of questions from a lot of senators about why are you doing this, and what's the big problem. The waste districts seem to be doing fine, and we're not hearing any complaints. There was only one entity that spoke against it, and guess what? That was Best Way Refuse Company, waste management type outfit, and that gentleman pretty much made a fool out of himself. He was questioned very heavily by a number of the senators, and he couldn't provide them any real answers as to why he was against it or what good it was going to do the waste industry. He just wouldn't come out and say that, you know, the waste districts compete with us in some way. So anyway, he got eaten alive, and he left with his tail between his legs. He was the best person that we had testifying for us, and he was against us.
And our own Senator Travis Holdman was on that committee.
Please stop, I'm in a meeting.
Travis was on that
Travis
committee.
was in there, and Travis voted against it. I took the resolutions that I had at that point, as well as your letter, a letter from Mayor McKean. Now, I think I had a letter from Ed Dyer, and we had the resolution from the city of Bern, and a letter from the commissioners. And when he walked into the room, I handed it to him and said, we do not want this legislation. And I am told, I've received a call today from one of the association board members who said that had a very big impact on Senator Holdman and the result. And although we did lose, there are some new developments today, and I want to be very careful about this. We have been kind of given reason to believe that Bill 88 may not come up if we don't fight as hard on 366. 366, I don't like it either, but
it leaves the county.
It leaves
Commissioners.
But that's the thing. I personally believe in home rule, and I think that the citizens of this county, through their representatives, if they decide they don't want the waste district, or they don't want some other governmental entity and think it's not doing the job that it's intended to do, and they vote to get rid of it, you know, that's the way it goes.
If we could, let's let Tim weigh in.
He's going to weigh in,
Yeah,
because
Tim's
he's
gonna weigh in.
always looking, and I understand his reasoning too, and just got to be careful. I don't want anybody to think we're not in opposition to that bill. I'm just not in as much opposition to it as I am to Bill 88.
Any
Bill
chance
88
that bill could be
killed it.
amended?
It has been amended.
Oh, yeah. It already has. I knew that, yeah.
You're talking about 366.
366. Amended again, though.
Well, they told me today there's an amendment to it, and I'm not sure whether the one we have is the final draft of the amendment or not.
This is, if I can interject, it's a fluid situation. First of all, what Hank's saying is a lot of the districts are being told make a choice. Which of the two bills are the, if I would say, lesser of two evils? And I think Hank's of the opinion that 366 is less onerous than 88. So if it came down to having to make a choice, I think Hank would be more willing to see 366 go forward than 88. Is that a fair
The
statement?
problem is, if you believe in home rule, which I do, then if our local elected officials, our commissioners, whoever, after public hearings with the people, decide that they don't want not just the waste district, but anything else that's going on, they have the ability to stop it. And I like that a lot better than it coming from Indianapolis.
And the issue then becomes who has the home rule. You know, if you go back and you look at the history of where we were and where we started with the district and where we are today, prior to 1990, everything was done through the county commissioners. In 1990, in Adams County, we had two landfills that were operating. We had a south landfill, we had a north landfill. There was a lot of complaints that were happening as a result of those operations. In fact, when I was county attorney, the first thing I did 3 days after I took office as county attorney is I went down to Item to ward off having our north landfill closed. And it was because of all the complaints that had been lodged as a result of its operations. The reason for the establishment of the districts was because at that time there were a number of landfills in the state of Indiana that had fairly significant life. But what was happening is you had a lot of landfills on the East Coast that were closing. And all of a sudden, it actually became cheaper for waste from New York and New Jersey to be trucked or trained out to the Midwest for disposal in landfills here because it was so cheap to do it. And as a result, what the state recognized was that landfills that previously had a life of 20 or 25 years was receiving waste to such a degree that they now were projecting that they would have a lifespan of 3 or 4 years. Okay? So they got very anxious, the state got very anxious about this and started looking, and they kind of looked at Ohio and Michigan, who had already taken some steps to curtail the importation of waste, and they established a new law. It was Senate, I think it was HB 1240, if I remember right, back in 1990, that required every county in the state of Indiana, with the exception of Marion County, to establish either a single county district or a multi-county district. Okay? So, and we had a year to do it. That law went into effect July of 1990, and you had until July of 1991 to make that determination. So at that time, the county commissioners initially started looking at an 11-county solid waste district, all northeast Indiana. The 4 counties along the Michigan border decided that their interests aligned better and closer together than with everybody else, so they bowed out. Allen County pretty much indicated that they were going to go it alone. They didn't need anybody's help. They had National Servall in their backyard. They weren't interested in joining other counties.
Don't forget they get the user fee from, that's how they're funded.
Yeah, I know. So, then it became obvious that we were probably down to about 5 counties. It was Grant County, Blackford County, Wells, Jay, and Adams. Grant County decided to go with a different group of counties to the central part of the state. So now it was 4 counties. Blackford County had an operating landfill. They decided that they pretty much were going to just be a single county district because they didn't have to worry about it. They had their own facility. So now it's down to 3 counties. And after talking at length with Jay County and Wells County, it became obvious to the commissioners at that time that the interests that were being expressed in those counties differed significantly from those in Adams County. And as a result, the decision was made to become a single county district. That was done for two reasons. One, because the commissioners felt that there was no sense getting into a district where we were immediately going to butt heads with those that were also in the district over certain issues. Second reason was they felt that they could make the best decision for Adams County residents. The third reason was because we had our own landfills, they wanted to keep those landfills available only for waste that was generated in Adams County to avoid those filling up with imported waste. So that's what they did. When they established the district, one of the first things that they had to consider was how was the operations going to be funded. They decided then, and that's been the case ever since, that they would rely upon a blend of tax revenues and gate fees. The reason that they did that was because they wanted to not be so dependent on one or the other to the point that it skyrocketed. It was a way to keep both down. When we first initiated our effort to establish a tax rate, the district at that time indicated that they were going to seek an 11.5-cent rate. We went down to the predecessor to the Department of Local Government Finance, and we had a hearing before them, and they rejected our tax rate because they said it was too low. They directed that we come back with a tax rate of 18 cents. Okay? The reason for that was we had no cash reserves. We had nothing. We were starting with zero. So they said you need to collect more initially, then if you want to pare it back, you can. So that's what we did. But it was within a couple years, and we were well below that. In time, the legislature capped what the rate could be to 8.5 cents, and that's been there for many, many years. Our current rate is 4.45 cents. The last 2 years it was 4.42 cents. So we're well below where we could be, but that was by design. When we established the district, the county then transferred the two landfills over to the district, and the district became responsible for the ownership and operation of the two facilities. Both, the south landfill had a year and a half of life left, I believe, and the north landfill had, at that time, I think about 5 years. Before that was done, and even before the decision was made to be a single county district, the county actually entertained discussions with National Servol and Waste Management about the possibility of them buying the landfills and operating them themselves. They declined. They did it first because the south landfill was too close to the Wabash River, and the second, the north landfill, there had been so much opposition to its operations and efforts to expand it that they just didn't want to pursue it. And frankly, if it was going to be limited to Adams County waste, they weren't interested. The only way they would do it is they would expand it as much as they could and then import waste. So, the district accepted the two landfills from the county and started operating it. For the first couple of years that happened, we closed out the south landfill. The north continued to operate. In about 1996-97, the U.S. EPA passed what's now called as Subtitle D regulations, and they were very cost-intensive type of regulations that was designed to protect the environment. It required a double synthetic lining of any cell, new cell, for disposal of waste. It required new monitoring requirements, methane detection, all this kind of stuff. And so we were faced with the prospect, if we were going to continue to operate beyond 1997, that we were going to have to actually implement that, and it made no sense. So then the district looked at what were they going to do. They had, in the meantime, cited the Martin site for a new landfill, but because of all of this, they started looking at alternatives, and one alternative was a transfer station. And you might ask, well, why why do either? Why do we need a landfill or a transfer station in Adams County? Well, the simple fact was that the district board at that time felt it was important to provide a location for easy access to residents, so they didn't have to drive 20 or 40 miles to take a load of waste to a landfill. So they tried to locate this in a place that made sense of a central location that would make it readily accessible to residents throughout the county, and it was also something that was very much needed by the two municipalities, City of Burns, City of Decatur, because we had our own workforce, our own sanitation department that was collecting refuse, and if they didn't have a place to take it, whether it was a landfill that we operated or a transfer station, now the city would have to transport it to the landfills at much higher cost and pay the fee, whatever that was at the gate. So in the end, the district established a transfer station, and that allowed everything to continue as it worked, and it proved to be very beneficial, and it was almost a symbiotic relationship between the municipalities and the district because it benefited each. The district needed the waste stream for the two municipalities in order to generate enough gate fees that they didn't have to rely heavily on property tax revenues. The property tax revenue reliance by the district allowed to keep the gate fees and the contract costs low to the city. Okay? So that has worked for 17 years, and it's worked very well. And so if you take a truckload of waste to the transfer station and dispose of it, you're probably going to pay $27 around there.
Depends on what
Weight.
it is, if you're a
Weight.
resident and the weight.
Right. But if you could take that same load of waste down to Jay County, $67.
No matter what it is. You can have a cardboard box in it,
Yeah.
if it's a pickup truck, it's $67.
Okay, so I will tell you that it's been tremendously beneficial in both ways. Okay, the solid waste district has also been able to provide a lot of other services that through the use of property tax revenues as well, because it provides the mechanism for wood grinding that the cities take advantage of. The district opens itself when we are hauling or picking up garbage on a holiday where the district might be closed. Hank opens it up so that the city trucks can come and dump their waste on the tipping floor. And in emergencies and natural disasters, the district has been invaluable.
So other things, Tim, we got the household
hazardous waste, e-waste, recycling. We have 3 locations. Yeah. So the district has taken a very active role in providing for waste disposal in Adams County, unlike a lot of other districts that do very little, if anything. Okay? So we are somewhat unique in that sense. But what we did is we found a way to make it work for Adams County. And now what's being proposed is going to totally undo that. Because if you take away the funding mechanism of property taxes, then what's going to happen is you're going to be forced to dramatically increase household fees or user fees, whatever you want to call it. It'll probably triple. Okay? And when that happens, you're going to have a lot of people that will say, I'm not going to pay that, I'll just throw it out here and let somebody else deal with it. And you're going to have trash all over the place. If you have a dumpster for your business, I guarantee it'll get filled up real fast. So that's the risk if you have to triple fees. If you don't triple the fees, and you're just going to live with whatever fees you're currently collecting, now you're talking about funding the operations of the district with 1/3 of your revenues. Well, what that means is you're going to cut services dramatically. And I'm not sure that the transfer station itself could operate that way. But as a practical matter, either way, what happens then is you're going to have, if you have a reduction of services, then people are going to dispose of their waste illegally. So either way, it's not good. If you look at SB 366, one of the one of the single greatest advantages, I think, of the creation of the Solid Waste District Board was its composition. If you look at prior to 1991, when the districts came into being, the decisions were being made by 3 county commissioners, which meant that basically 2 individuals made the call. Okay? When the district board was created, it included all 3 county commissioners, a representative of county council, both mayors of the 2 largest cities in the county, and a representative from the largest fiscal body in the county of a municipality, which is Decatur. So you have a 7-member body made up of 7 elected officials, all of whom are very accountable, responsible individuals. Okay? And what that did is and I saw this happen when I was county attorney with the county commissioners, when you have one body and only 2 people have to be involved in the decision, it's very easy to put a lot of pressure on those 2 individuals to go a certain way. Now that you've expanded the board to 7 members, okay, now you're looking at trying to convince membership from literally 4 different locations, the 2 cities, the county council, and the commissioners. It's much harder for some, lobbyists or a group of individuals to put pressure on that group than it is on one body of 3 commissioners. The second thing it did is it expanded the voice to include municipalities, which I think was invaluable. It did 2 things. The first is it allowed for the cities to have a strong voice in decision-making, which they didn't have previously. The second thing it did, and I think probably even more importantly, is it generated a close working relationship between the county and the municipalities. Okay? That's why the district performs the services it does for the county in the event of natural disasters. Okay? That's why the district provides wood chipping and some of these other services for the city, and keeps and provides the gate fees to the city at a reduced cost because of that relationship.
And even, I mean, lesser scale, but when I need work done out here on the Decatur recycling lot, the gravel, Jeremy goes out there and does that for me.
Right.
We need curbs painting or areas painted, Jeremy does that. We work together on these type of things, and it's been a good relationship the entire time I've been here.
So, bottom line
It's
is,
not broken.
what these 2 bills try to do is fix something, as Hank said, that is not broken. It has worked very, very well in our community because it is tailored to our needs. So this resolution basically stands up
But
by
if
the...
the next director were not running as an efficient ship as Hank has,
Then they need
it gives
to
the
fire
county...
him or
the district board can let them go real fast, Matt.
What'd you say?
I said the district, if somebody isn't doing their job in Hank's position, the district board can fire them.
Explain a little bit deeper here, but briefly.
Are you sure?
Yeah, you sure?
Senate Bill 366.
Okay,
Yep,
Senate Bill
yep,
366, the way it's worded now, and again, I don't know if it's,
Change.
this is the one that's fluid. Initially, it said that districts would not have any legal authority whatsoever, that they could no longer do anything. All they could do is recommend to the county executive, and then it was up to the county executive to decide whether they agreed or not. Okay? Second thing it did is it said that the county executive could dissolve the district, in which case then the county executive was to pay off the debts of the solid waste district, and then all of the income that remained of the district and all assets of the district went back to the county, and then they decide how it would get divvied up, if it got divvied up. Well, that now has evolved, and the legislation as it now reads that got out of committee is that as of June 30th of 2017, all districts expire. They go away. Now, as after June 30th of 2017. If the county executive decides to reestablish the district, it may. Doesn't have to. If it does reestablish it, it still
And if
has,
they reestablish it, they can still utilize the property tax.
as long as 88 doesn't go forward,
Right, as long as 88, because, yes.
okay?
And they still have all the legal authority.
And they still have the legal authority, yes. But, at any time, the county executive can dissolve the district.
And at this point, that's not possible.
Right.
It would have to be the board itself to
Right, but
take any
under,
action.
that's correct. But, at this point, there's also a change that says that, the amendment says that the district cannot dissolve itself, only the executive can. And it says that while the executive can dissolve them at any time, they have to at least hold a public hearing and say what they're going to do with the assets.
There's a whole process they gotta go through.
Yeah, it's a
And I
hearing.
guarantee you, our commissioners wouldn't want that coming down on them.
I'm not
I
worried about...
talked to one of them.
Yeah,
He
no. I'm confident that our current commissioners understand. They've been very supportive of opposing these two bills.
Key is those are current commissioners.
But 5-10 years from now, who knows?
You know, we can't predict whatever's gonna happen
Right.
in 10 years.
Yeah.
But why reestablish something that doesn't need to be undone?
Yeah.
Well, and
do you
that's-
know what her motivation, other than in here, it says she's wanting local control,
Browning can,
which is local
It's already
control.
local control. It's what her vision is local control should be the county executive.
but it also says Brown and Kenley question the efficiency of solid waste management districts and believe cities and towns could provide the same services more effectively. So,
I don't know why she has that opinion.
I don't know, well, first of all, I'm not sure what she's referring to, because they're not the ones that ultimately would have the authority to do it. I mean, I suppose they could do it independently if that's what she's saying. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
The Allen County District doesn't have a transfer station like we do, but they do a lot of recycling education. They have a lot of Tox Away, Tire Amnesty Days. They work with recycling at OmniSource. They do a lot of good things that would be happening in Fort Wayne otherwise. I know some other reasons why Mrs. Brown has this problem, but I don't think we need to put that all out on the table.
ultimately, though, it's the Senate's going to vote for this, so we're showing
The Senate
support or opposition.
The two,
Senate has passed the bill out of committee by a very narrow margin, and I think it's getting shakier and shakier that 88 might make it. But that doesn't mean that we need to let up on it. Now is the time that we need to stay on them and keep the pressure on them. Senator Kenley, in this meeting in which he was told by a great number of people that they were against this bill, then in the committee hearing, when asked by some of the other senators, what's the feedback you're getting, he said, well, really only the solid waste districts in the association are against it, which was not being very forthright, because many of us were in the room the day before when all these people were telling them, we don't want you to change the way we're doing things now. A lot of those people also happened to be on the board of the waste districts because the law puts them on the board. There were mayors there, they're on the board, there were commissioners there who were on the waste district board. And Senator Kenley looks at people who work for the district, like me, they're not here for me. You're only out to protect your job, and I don't really know what's wrong with that. I think the senator tries to protect his job every time there's an election. But for us to do it, that's the only thing we have on our mind is not anything but other than protecting our jobs and those of our people. But he did not indicate to the other senators that there was any opposition from this from all the people who are now sending the resolutions and the letters. And so we got to keep that up, and I want to send these resolutions to all of the senators. We're working on getting a a list of all of them and email him a copy so that he can't say that again if the bill does come up for a vote next week.
And that leads me to Resolution 2016-1. It's your opportunity to weigh in on this. Ken has already...
Position of both of them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Ken has already sent a letter. The commissioner sent a letter. Mayor McKean sent a letter. Bern City Council adopted a resolution. The commissioners adopted a resolution.
Councilman Dyer sent a resolution, Rex Moore sent he sent a
Letter.
letter, Rex sent a letter, a number of people sent.
Yes. So this is the opportunity for the city council to weigh in on this as well.
And I was told by the person that is hired by the association to work all these things with the politicians that the letters and resolutions that were sent from Adams County were instrumental in getting Senator Holman on board and may have a very big outcome, effect on the outcome of this bill. So, again, I think Ken's right. Neither bill is good for us. If it were up to me to wave a wand, I would shoot them both down. Is that likely to happen? Probably not. But there's one in particular, the worst one for us is 88 right now.
I think right now we show our support for both of them.
So what we're really wanting to do is somebody
Introduce Resolution 2016-1.
Sure, I can. So we need a motion to...
Introduce and read it by short title only.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Resolution 2016-1, short title, Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Decatur, Indiana, which expresses its opposition to SB 88 and SB 366 and the negative impact such legislation will have on the citizens of the City of Decatur and Adams County, Indiana, and which expresses its support of the Adams County Solid Waste Management District, the service it provides, and its statutory authority.
That's the shortest resolution you've ever written.
That's the title.
That's just the short title of it. So do we have a motion to pass resolution?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll pass around 3 copies.
One quick thing, Hank.
Probably
If
could have
this
just said
does
it's
go
bad.
through, we want to stop.
Probably
If
just said
it
it's
does
bad.
go through, when those contracts, when that stops, if 88 goes through and they say, we're going to shut this thing
88
off,
is nothing more.
or you're going to, let's say we're going to reorganize the
Increase taxes.
solid waste board.
We've got
Guess who
through
has to do it?
2017,
The local
we can still do the property tax levy, and we can do a property tax levy until any debt we have is paid off, but we don't have any
It's
debt.
totally a tax.
So we could do
Just all the way around.
Still paying property tax.
we have a couple of
You're
years
gonna pay them money.
to
Prepare and get the
prepare and,
commissioners to
figure out
okay,
how we're going to do this,
Oh.
what we're going to keep, what we might not keep.
The next question I was going to have would be this. If they do break
You know what
a,
the underlying
if
issue
the
is.
state law would break that, does that
I'll share it with you.
relieve our vendor of any contracts that we have, long-term contracts
No.
for disposal? Will they honor that? That's what my
Well,
question.
I think we have to.
Not on the...
Tim, the question is, should they pass 88 and, our contract should extend out for another 7 years and we can do property taxes for another 2,
Yeah.
with the provision that, I don't know if any debt, he said you could continue to use property taxes to resolve any debt that the
That's not
district
debt.
had.
That's not, they're talking about bond issues, they're talking
We
about
don't
actual
have any of
debt.
those, so.
No.
Yeah.
I mean,
My question was, is will we lose our contracts, your 7-year contract for the fee?
potentially.
Okay.
If
Then
you-
we'd probably get sued for breaking the contract, didn't we?
Well, we enter into annual contracts with the cities. What could happen is if the district can't sustain its operations,
The district would, it's gonna have to be operated, so that's the whole problem with these bills. Okay, so he takes us off the property tax rolls as he feels good, but the people of Decatur and the county are still gonna require the services. So instead of paying, you know, take a look at your property tax bill and see what you pay that goes to the waste district. I think I pay about $35, $40, somewhere in that neighborhood. Not a great deal of money. So you won't have that. Who's gonna miss that? Most people couldn't tell you what they're paying now. But if you have to start pulling your wallet out every time you go out to the transfer station, instead of paying $11 for a pickup load with 999 pounds, you know, you got to pull out $75.
Well,
Who is going to be happy about that?
Nobody, but there's also
thousands
thousands
of
of
people
people that have never been to your transfer station in the
Well,
county.
how do you know that?
Well, I would assume.
There may be thousands. I think there's an awful lot of people that use it.
but it's gonna create pollution, and then we're gonna have to police it and all that other kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's
It
not
can be a
good.
nightmare.
I
It's not
get that
good.
it seems crazy to us that something like this would pass because we have a well-run system, but I think statewide that obviously isn't the case everywhere.
Well, there's a lot of waste districts that do very, very good job, and some, and I'm not even saying it's their fault, because they weren't funded properly with
Yeah.
either a property tax or user fee. They haven't been able to do much, but they were required to have it. So these people have to pay a director, and then the director's got to have somebody to direct, so you're at least paying a couple of people to go do a few classes here and there to school, or contract a little recycling, and people may look at that and say, okay, we're paying $100,000 a year, what do we get? Is it worth it? But I don't think there's much of that. It's just Senator Kenley wants these properties, wants us off the property tax.
He wants it on his resume that he lowered taxes.
Yeah. But
He's
then
not.
all the other.
No, he's not.
No,
In his city mind,
The
he's
county
increasing
council people
fees.
who brought this up, many times they said, okay, so you are gonna be able to say you lowered property taxes, and then we're gonna have to institute an additional fee on our people, and that's gonna
And we're
make
gonna
us
look like the bad guys.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's what they've done. They have a history of that.
I don't know, but I can just tell you.
It's been going on for about 10 years.
Resolutions and letters from you as individuals, and if you can get some family members or friends or businesses to write us, all that contact information, they get covered up with paper, and that is very helpful. Or phone calls.
Well, emails too, it'd be great to have that in the newspaper, wouldn't it, to get that email address to?
It's in the newspaper.
Yeah,
Isn't that
last night you had that.
Letter to the
Yeah.
editor.
Yeah.
Plus, there was an article the day before.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Whose letter to the editor?
Hank
people
Frank,
gotta do it.
Thanks, Frank.
thank you for coming.
Thanks. Something similar like this by GUARD.
yes,
That was 5 years
2011.
ago.
2011, and that one we beat her. It was the vote was a tie, and the lieutenant governor was not there to break it, and so her bill was defeated. So the association immediately went in and tried to appease her and gave her just about everything she wanted. So
Guess who
Guess who's-
Finley's friend is?
Yeah.
that's right, and they're both Liz Brown and Senator Kenley are understudies of Senator Gard. So, anyway, I'm hopeful maybe that we can not be hurt too badly with this. But if we don't stay on it, they're going to get us. They come back every year now. For the first 10 years I was in this job, I never had to go to the State House. I've had to go every year since because this keeps coming. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Hank.
Thanks, Hank.
Tim, I really enjoyed that.
I bet you did.
His brief, the history of...
Tim, are you going to pass that down to Kim? Or you want
Yeah.
me to just-
No, I'll take care of it.
Well, before we go to the other thing, let's take care of the Mix Avenue situation real quick here. I think all of you were here for the Board of Works meeting. You all understand the situation there. We just need to make it a matter of record, correct, of support for...
Well, I think,
Not council, I mean, sewer money, right?
it's sewer money, so really
We don't
doesn't
even need to-
hearing need to...
Okay, moving on then. And that would be talking about First Street and the acquisitions of properties and easements. so that we can move forward with that, we need to discuss
yeah, I know what you're saying, yeah.
primarily where we take the funds from. What account will pay for what.
What kind of pipe is it? It's not a sewer pipe, it's a stormwater pipe?
For the
But-
First Street project?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were
Right.
talking about
First Street.
Yeah,
The First Street project.
this is the interceptor.
My pardon.
I don't know if all of you are familiar with the mapping as to where each property is, but down on the south end was the Corey Apple rental property. That one we'll be closing on Friday. Then we're be tearing down the Macklin duplex, but we're not buying that, we're just going to tear it down for Macklin's. Then we have, the next property that would actually be buying would be Mark's Heating. And then the last property that we're purchasing is Rice Realty.
No.
No?
You're buying Ortiz.
Oh,
and-
Ortiz, I forgot Ortiz. Ortiz and then Rice Realty.
And we also are buying Loshis.
And Losh's, I forgot that, that's the old Decatur Auto Parts. Okay, the Decatur Auto Parts, Corey Affolter, Marks, and Rice, I can see that those needed, I believe, to be purchased for the project. The Ortiz one didn't necessarily need to be purchased. It was more of the garage that we needed, right?
Affolter, a portion of it essentially, because the house is up against the building because of the route. Essentially, it kind of is a split potentially. I think at one point we'd shown all of it, but essentially we're at the back. We wanted to see the route. You have the reduced copies of this with the route of the properties.
So while we're going to purchase these, we have project money, okay, that we can apply toward the purchase. But do we want to use all project money? We want to stay within our budget for the project.
We had authorized $500,000 for 5 years for capital improvement projects last year. Part of that was development of the riverfront, and we had set aside money. And when we put the capital campaign together, as far as where this money was going to, like the raising the money and what we're raising money for from the public, where that was going to go to, the acquisition and demolition of 3 properties, which were Loshi, Affolter, and Macklin, were already incorporated in that. That's regardless of the sewer, right? This was a desire to purchase those for the proposed Riverside Park right there. So from that, the money that was set aside, the $500,000 for over 5 years, or whatever, 2.5 over 5 years, there was money set aside for those. We're obviously not purchasing Macklin's, but we are going to tear it down. So I think, to me, it seems reasonable that that money could be allocated for those. But
from the capital improvement.
The capital improvement fund, but we had not incorporated, to go beyond the amount that was allotted on the other properties, Beaumont, Ortiz, Rice. You're going to be taking money away from a different project. That makes sense?
Okay, so Cam, you said Loshi, Macklin,
Affolter.
and Affolter.
An Affolter. It was an estimate only, of
Right.
acquisition and demolition, and I had to go back and find that document, but I want to say it was $150,000 or $200,000 that was earmarked for that.
I have in the capital, in CCD fund, I set aside capital stellar projects of $200,000, and then I have so much put in the CEDAT fund also.
Because the other thing that, hopefully happens is that we have to use some of that money that's set aside for last year and this year to take the Schaefer building down, right? So I guess I'm just cautious. I think there's money there that we should put towards this, because again, we're going to do it regardless of the sewer. This just happens that we can do two things now. But I'm hesitant to use much more than what was allocated because of,
That's my question on this whole thing is, wasn't the reason you run sewer along these houses is because it was going to save money off the original price of what the sewer project to go down First Street is?
Correct.
It's going to cut the cost.
It does.
So
Now-
doesn't that open up the opportunity?
More into First Street.
Yeah.
It's still less, but why isn't the sewer then paying to take the houses down if that's a cheaper route? Why?
is it safe to say that there's maybe
Well,
a more expensive overall cost than,
Yeah, let me, if I can interject one thing, with the Macklin property, there's a concern about the riverbank eroding. If you look at pictures from 30 years ago to today, there's been a loss of the river. It's come closer to their building over time, and there's a concern. In fact, the Macklins apparently addressed this with the city back in the late 70s and raised a concern at the time that the project was done then.
there was a rehab or fix that was done
And
in 76 or so.
the city had indicated that it would do what it could to stabilize the bank. And in talking with Steve Macklin, he brought that up and said that he wants to make sure that the city is committed to doing that. Now, I think what Nate has indicated is that, we're somewhat limited in what we can do, because it's not like you can just fill in the bank and reestablish it back to what it was 30 years ago. But there are things that can be done, and, it's possible that, I think you're discussing the possibility of maybe bidding it in the alternative where you would do an open cut versus the directional bore, if that would lend itself to do the bank stabilization as part of an open cut, for example. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. So if
Okay.
we pay for some of this with capital improvements, that means less money we have to bond.
But let me point out the cost, because you guys need to be aware, and some of these are coming pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's going to come fast, and I just want you guys to know that right now, just the estimates to buy the properties and the easements, it's $663,000.
Yeah.
So, and that doesn't cost, that's not demo either. So,
But most of the demo we can do in-house, correct?
will we be, will that happen this year?
So get rid of it.
Well, I don't think that I don't know when the Loshi building would be taken down once we acquire it, but you're not going to have access to the Loshi building and probably anywhere after May 1st up to July 1st, because they got a lot of stuff in there, and the family said that they needed time to get that out. The Mark's Heating and Air, I don't think you're necessarily looking to take it down immediately, and possibly not the Ortiz building.
well, Mark's Heating is just the garage, right?
Yeah,
There's a garage at
the
Mark's.
garage.
There's a garage on Ortiz that would need to come down.
Right, those two things,
The
and then the rice
would
building.
need to come down in
Right.
its entirety.
So I guess, Cam, what's your recommendation?
All I'm saying is that there's money that was planned before the sewer project was even there. That there was money that was planned in that grand scheme to be allocated towards property acquisition and demolition. It is not 600 and how much thousand, right?
Yeah.
This is a pretty aggressive.
Well,
35.
yeah, right, let me just kind of go down the list here, and I'll tell you, the first closing is with Outfielders this Friday, and that's the amount that the city is going to have to wire to cover the costs related to the city is $34,725.52. That's the purchase price plus the closing expenses. And then the same day, we're closing the Ortiz property. That is going to be $125,122.82. The following Monday, we're closing the Rice property. That is $68,221.78. Okay? Within another week and a half after that, we need to settle up with let's see, what easements do we have? Oh, we have an easement also with Loshis, that we have to settle up. We got an easement with Loshis, and we're buying the property ultimately. But we have to have the easement sooner than we can get access to the property. So it was a blended thing, and that also allowed us to get to where they were willing to sell, which,
Got the
How much
front
is the easement?
easement.
20,000. That was, I mean, they would not consider it, and it was a question, do we walk away from it?
It was our
And
only mechanism.
it's the only way to get them to agree to sell.
Ultimately, all
And
these
to-
costs add up, but it's still less than if we went the other route.
Well, and that's just it. You know, looking at the Loshi property on the back end, that's a tight fit too. And if you don't have, I think it's 30 feet on one side and 60 feet that we're going to end up getting the easement.
Are we buying Biggs property?
That's something that we intend to buy. We haven't negotiated
need it
that
for
yet.
storm projects.
And we
need that.
don't, and I think because of the value, you don't actually need appraisals, right?
Right, if it's under 25,000, you don't have to get the appraisals. So, you got that one with Loshis, then also we have the granary one, and that one is due,
Which is the bank lot?
that's the bank lot. You know, we haven't finished things up with Macklin's, but I'm guessing Macklin's is going to be probably within, the month, sometime in the month of February, as would, any of the other easements. We still have a couple of easements further north that we haven't acquired, and if we have to buy those, then we're probably looking at doing that.
So we have to front the money till the bond money comes in?
The bond money's here.
We have it, right?
So should we take $100,000 of,
Well, I agree with Kim. For me, it's easiest to understand this, that we have two projects going on here. We have the project of the riverfront, which there are already designated properties that was to be acquired. And we use as much money as we can for those properties because that's the riverfront project. Then the second project is the sewer project. That then falls under the bonding and whatever other monies city may have that we put towards that. But for me to understand, it's a little more simple if it's kept in kind of two projects.
I think what we can do, since we had thought we were going to be able to buy a Macklin property, we're not, but we are going to be responsible for the cost of tearing it down. I just think we can take the amount, it was 200,000, right?
200,000
Yeah.
was in that Stellar.
If we said 200,000 towards acquisition and demolition, I think easements need to be sewer.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But then, however far that 200,000 goes,
But if it would first go towards,
the south building.
yes.
Okay, so what you're saying is, the Apple building would be financed out of that 200,000.
yeah. The Loshi.
And the Loshi property would be financed out of that 200,000.
And then the demolition of all three.
But the Loshi easement,
The easement would go out of sewer funds. And then, what about the Rice property? That would come out of sewer?
Sewer.
Okay?
That would be sewer.
So, when we get to Marks, what about Ortiz?
Marks and Ortiz are the two.
That's where it's probably blend.
I think it's the demolition cost as well that we need to, I realize that's later. And maybe we can, I don't know, from a timeline perspective, do we need to get these things purchased and then the demolition?
Well, I think that both Ortiz and the Beaumont building, it has to be a shared thing, because we did need part of those properties for
For the sewer.
the sewer project. So part of the money for those purchases.
But were those
should come from-
properties part of the original riverfront?
No.
No, so,
So that it wouldn't come from that, but it would come from city monies other than sewer project money.
okay, I get you, yeah.
Right, Phyllis? You with us, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So you,
A portion of it. How much?
So what's the cost of the sewer project should be the first thing we have to decide, right? Are you way over on the sewer project, the budget of it? I mean, why are we talking about?
Well, and part of it isn't so much that we're over budget on this project. Right now, my projections are is that we are under budget, but this is phase 3 of 4 phases. So any money that can be saved delays a potential rate increase and what we need to do moving into the future phases of the project.
Do you have any contingency in there?
It's a significant contingency.
Okay.
So there's post-construction monitoring, there's designing of the future storage tank and other parts of this that need to come out of whatever we can keep back. So I'm looking at that. Another issue is if we buy properties with the sewage bond for sewer use, and there's hope to try to redevelop those properties, does the sewer ratepayers and the sewer utility get recouped for the potential purchase, or is that just bought with sewer money given to the city and then the city uses it for other purposes? How do I protect the ratepayers in that portion of the sewer project? That becomes kind of a question. So ideally, we're looking for ways to help protect the bond money because it's been closed. We don't know where our numbers are going to finally come in. I'm comfortable that we have a generous cushion essentially in the project. That was by design, so we found every way that we can possibly to keep that cost down.
I think the answer to protecting the ratepayers is that we're buying properties instead of going down First Street.
Right. I mean, you've already protected the ratepayers, but then now you want more money to pay for the sewer project.
I think
that's what I'm understanding.
But I think the other part of it, Tyler, is that there are more projects beyond this one that the this bond can pay for.
So if our bonding capacity was what, 6 million?
6 million.
We had to pay back our ban, which was 540,000 or whatever. We paid some costs, soft costs, and some other expenses out of that. So how much do we have left for the project itself at this point, Nate? Is it about?
Of the $5 million or $6 million, I think we've got about any number I give you is going to be incorrect, unfortunately.
The bond wasn't necessarily established based on the estimates of this project. It was broader. It was by our rate increase. It was what we had, what our bonding capacity was. That's what established it. And in fact, we increased it. We originally
It was only like 3.4 million is what we were originally, and then we refinanced and wrapped around the financing of a prior bond issue to increase it so that our gate revenue, or our user fees could sustain debt service for, get out of there.
Let's go back to that discussion.
Clear that out of my head. But the user fees would then sustain a bond issue of up to 6 million. And so that's how we got there. And we had to, part of that went towards the debt service on the prior bond issue, part of it went towards the ban. So there's different things that have gone into it, so it reduced that amount that was left. I don't know what that is, but let's say that the project comes in at $3.5 million and we've got $4 million. That extra $500,000, what Nate's trying to do is hold that extra money and keep that pot as big as possible that he can then use towards other projects that we know we're going to have to do, and that will reduce what we have to pay down the road or increase rate fees at a later time.
I guess my biggest concern, and I guess is maybe Tyler where you're coming from too, is that, so if we use more city money than we had previously planned on for acquisition of properties along First Street, we're just shifting pots of money. We're allowing these projects to increase, but we're taking away from other planned projects.
Other projects that perhaps would have only been funded through the use of city revenue.
So I guess that's where I'm coming from, the perspective of, okay, we had budgeted $200,000, so we could reasonably use up to that amount for whatever it takes, whatever properties acquisition. Yes, we want to start maybe on the south side, but if that ends up bleeding over to support some of these others, okay. I guess I would be concerned about digging into more city money.
Right, because I guess I'm with you on that, spending that amount, but didn't we, for the Schaefer building, is all this going to come due at the same time, and then where's the rest of the money going to come from?
Yeah, my concern is this is only January,
Right.
and
And if the
we-
streetscape projects, and you want to move forward with all these other projects, it's going to drive real fast. And then, we're buying these properties to mow the grass. I mean, and you put all the other projects that people paid money for, that they donated money for to see done, and
We better start
Oh.
showing them something.
Yeah.
yeah, you're not,
Yeah.
they're not.
Although I don't hear us saying we're using any more than what was designated.
Already designated. No, and in
To
fact,
do.
that was, we originally had planned on buying these last year.
Yeah. So that's why, for my simple thinking, kind of still keeping them two projects. Because they are blending together, but as far as money allocated,
So, Kim,
Well,
are
the-
you okay with spending all of the project money now, and then have nothing for the rest of the year? I'm just asking,
The
do you want to
problem,
do this all at one time, or
You mean the
do the little
200,000?
projects at a time, right? The 200,000. Do you want that all to be used now? Or, I mean, is this the project for the year? I guess that's the only thing I'm questioning.
Phyllis, you're saying we have 200,000 available for the year, right?
That's what I have, but then we have that nature preserve that's set aside in the seeded, so that's basically kind of gone. I think we have 150 left in that. But then the 200,000 is all we set aside, the extra.
And Nate, Phyllis, just look, at the end of 15, you had just shy of 5 million.
Okay.
So, I don't know what you spent last month.
the problem, the one thing I will interject is on the Ortiz and the Mark's Heating properties, if you're going to use sewer property or sewer revenues for the purchase of those two properties, you have to show that you needed that property for that project. You can't just use the sewer proceeds to buy properties. So,
Willy-nilly.
yeah, it has to, so if you're saying you only need a portion of that property, it may make it difficult to justify, and I don't want to get into a situation where somebody challenges that
Well,
and
if-
jeopardizes the bond issue.
If on both cases, for example,
So all or
like
nothing.
Ortiz, what we really needed was the garage. Well, if they don't want to just sell the garage, you got to buy the whole property.
Exactly,
So,
yeah.
I think you can justify that.
yeah.
It was an all or nothing deal.
Now, there is building improvements set aside too in council's budget that we could use towards that too. But I don't know if you're going to make any improvements on this building too in the future, or for this year.
I would like to hang
If
on
not,
to them.
So, and then, we've got riverboat money too, rainy day. I mean, there's like 80 in the riverboat.
What's in our,
50 in the-
what's in our general?
The cash balance is quite a bit.
We're
but,
healthy there.
Yeah, we've got a good cash balance.
what's the river boat been used for in the past?
Usually sewer
Anything
projects.
and everything.
Yeah, the riverboat
About anything.
is mostly, you can spend it on pensions, I think, and sewer projects.
Sewer project?
Sewer,
The riverboat
stormwater.
money makes sense. And how
The
much is in it?
riverboat would probably make sense
But
for the
80,000
for
is
the
in
sewer
there.
project. The rainy day can be used about anything. There's
Anything,
50.
yeah.
But the
And there's
150 that
50
we,
in the rainy?
but the 150 that we set aside for the wetlands,
That's in seeded.
but is that, I mean, I guess my understanding is that, you maybe know this, where you might not have to spend is,
Well, it's a 200,000 match, but we're going to get credited for the value of anything donated and plus in-kind services. I think it brings it down to where we're actually looking to pay somewhere 140 to 155,000, somewhere in there.
I have budgeted 159.
Right, so that kind of takes that into consideration already.
How often do we get money into this? Just once or so. We wouldn't want to completely deplete it, would we?
I would.
So a portion from riverboat maybe. I mean, like I said, I don't want to take all $80,000 out of it.
The one thing I will point out is we have 3 closings, 2 on Friday and 1 on Monday. and
So
I have
we've
fund
got to
those.
decide tonight.
So wherever you draw it from, we got to make sure Phyllis can wire funds for those 3 closings.
Right.
Can we, so instead of 200, could we allocate 100 now and 100 later?
You have a recommendation, Tim?
I'm just saying that whatever the three totals that I just read off to you,
Got to at least have that.
you gotta cover that.
What are those three totals?
It was,
Or what's the total of those three?
well, that's what, 34, 725, 125, 122, and
The Apple
68,
property,
221, 78.
the Apple property really doesn't have much to do, right, with the sewer project.
We're 75 feet from the building.
Okay.
So that really should.
So that
That would come out of what Cam is saying.
So
Right.
Affolter is paid out of the
Out of the 200,000,
river development.
7,000 we need by Monday.
Okay.
How much is it, 200?
227 by Monday.
and then we've got,
Affolter was 35.
and then with the easements, assuming that we get things worked out with Macklin's, you're looking 12, you're looking 517, so you're looking probably about 40, well, we've got Stanley's too. That's another one I gotta talk about. I'd say you're probably looking rough, just on a ballpark figure, probably 50,000 in easements. And those are all probably gonna be done within the next month.
Besides the Affolter, is there any other
Now,
property?
the easements probably ought to come out of sewer,
That's
because
not
most of those
part
are
of-
for sewer related.
Well, maybe
the
we
sewer.
say we have a total of about
Project.
50 for easements, roughly?
I'm just estimating.
Maybe that could be from Riverboat.
Well, no, that should come out of sewer.
That could come out of sewer.
Well,
But Riverboat money can be used.
Well,
can be used for sewer improvements.
The 6.5 doesn't matter, but I'm just saying, I don't want to deplete Riverboat,
But my most immediate concern is we gotta have
Immediate.
227 or whatever it is on Friday and Monday.
besides Affolter property, what other properties are not impacted by the sewer project? Or are there any others?
There aren't, right? I mean,
Affolter's part of Mark's, part of Ortiz, I mean,
But a whole property? The
no,
Affolter is the only one?
Rice.
That's,
Rice, it's
Sewer.
directly under Rice.
You know, that's the only one that is the whole thing.
Right, so...
well, I'm saying not part of the sewer.
Sewer department, because
Mhm.
it's...
Right.
Any property that touches it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's where I'm trying to get, what is not? Well, I mean, is there, besides Affolter, is there any other that
Would it be
is,
helpful if
is
we pass
not
this,
part
kind
of
of
the
this
project?
plan out, so you can kind of look at some of the properties, or are you kind of comfortable, if I just, because these aren't marked, don't you?
Yeah.
There's just some of them. First Street properties, Rice, that's under Rice. This is the garage and little shops behind Ortiz, that's the house. Mark's Heating and Air, his back garage pole building there. The Macklin properties, that's the Macklin duplex there. You can see where our sewers are here, Affolter, and then Loshi. That's our current termination point.
Okay, so Loshi isn't dependent upon the sewer project?
Yes, it is.
The easement
Well,
is.
the easement.
The easement,
Yeah.
but that's separate, that's two
Well,
different,
the
isn't
easement
it?
is,
The easement's separate from the purchase of the property.
Right, that's what I,
Primarily to the north, we're looking at
but we
this
couldn't get the
easement.
property without the easement.
right, but couldn't the property of Loshi,
Loshi, that would be
No.
one that Cam said was designated for riverfront.
right,
These-
and
these-
Affolter's. So Loshi's, Affolter's,
then I think you need to save demolition money for those three properties.
mm-hmm,
But I also get Cam's point wanting to use that 200,000.
right.
Loshi and Affolter together is about 100 and, just shy of 150, I believe.
And
Then you're looking at demolition of
Demolition.
all three of them.
Actually, it's less than that because I included the easement, which wouldn't be part of.
Well, it's 125.
Yeah, 125.
But I think the easement, because it will be paid separately, should come out of the sewer money.
But this is 95, this is 35, so it's almost 130, right, between those two.
Okay. I make a motion that Loshi's property and Affolter's property be paid out of the river development
Capital fund,
capital fund of approximately, what, 100 and,
approximately 129. somewhere in that
29.
range.
I'm going to show
I'll second that.
Then look at it first.
But that's not a part of your 100, that's not part of your 220 though.
No.
That
What
has
else
to
do you
be,
close on?
Well, let's get
Apple to
we're
Roche?
doing apple,
And
we're
then-
doing one on Friday, teas at 2 on
What we need by
Friday,
Monday.
and rice on Monday.
But see, that
Well,
keeps it-
half over is.
So Ortiz
gives us
comes out
70,000
of, we only need
for demolition.
garage.
That's why I don't know what they're paying, where they're coming up with these closing, the funds. We just, you need to know, so you know what funds
I
it's
know
on.
where to take which checking
So this is
account.
what we're proposing to terminate, relocation, this is right there at the corner, but, that's when they're talking about the easement, there's the easement behind that.
Okay, so basically you're saying that the Loshi property, anything that has to do with the sewer line
Doesn't have to do with the sewer.
is going to come out of the,
Riverfront redevelop capital,
anything that the sewer line's going to touch, that entire property will be gone, budgeted through the sewer?
Right.
Because right now...
Is that basically right?
If we had 200, say we have 200, right, in the Loshi property and the Affolter property, just to purchase those, is going to be $130,000. Then you got to tear down Loshi, Affolter, and the Macklin duplex. So there's 3 buildings right in a row that we'll have to tear down, so we're saving essentially 70 towards demolition. But right now, the only thing that needs to come out, and Phyllis maybe answered your question before, the only thing that's immediately available, I guess, is Affolter, because Loshi's is not set for closing, right?
Right.
That won't close until sometime May to
right,
July.
but this way Phyllis knows where to pull that money.
Exactly. I just need to...
But we, yeah, as soon as we vote on this motion, we'll tackle that
Well,
one.
half overs, we know where that's coming from.
Yeah.
Was there a vote?
Well, we have a motion.
Okay.
The design guy.
Let me ask you a question.
Check the budgets and...
Let me ask you a question. If this is, we've saved all this money because we went down First Street, right? I'm just trying to
By
get...
not going down.
By not-
By not going down First Street. So any property that touches that water or sewer line should be charged to the sewer part, right? Is that what we're saying? Is that what you made, is that what
Well,
the
that's-
proposition?
That's not the motion.
No.
Okay,
That, you're going to treat those properties now in a second motion.
Yeah.
The first motion is just to cover the purchase of the properties to the south out of the riverfront, because that's what it was originally to do. Then we got to address who's going to, where it's coming from on the ones that we're closing further north.
We could, in theory, have done these projects, the project is proposed, but simply an easement and do acquisition or demolition on those. What is the intent to pursue acquisition during the negotiation because it was beneficial to the other projects we're going for.
So the motion
But
just
they
impacts...
wouldn't give us easements. They weren't about to do that unless we took the entire property.
my only point is, in the future, if it touches that sewer line, we should really pay it out of that bond for the
That's
sewer.
the intent.
Because if it doesn't touch the sewer line, we need to use it on that capital fund. Am I right?
That's
Right.
why
You're
the
right.
motion is for Loshi's and Affolters to be purchased out of the capital project.
Okay, because they're not touching.
Correct.
And preserve-
The easement on the,
The easements are all sewer.
okay,
Easements are all sewer.
all right.
And that way we're preserving money for demolition of those 3 properties south of...
Yeah, if we purchased those 2 for approximately $130, that leaves $70,000 that we can put toward demolition.
We all agree with this.
I'm fine with it, yeah.
You agree with that?
So the motion on the floor is to use capital fund money for Loshi's and Affolter property, which will total approximately $130,000. And we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? That motion's carried. Okay. Now we've got 2 of them set up. We all agree that, in theory, the rest of them should come from the sewer money. Do we want all of it to come from sewer money? Or do we want
I don't know what your options are to get the rest of the money. I mean,
Well, we do have that riverboat, we could use a portion of that.
But you,
There's other,
but you may need that for demolition of,
We may need that for water lines.
I mean, right now, all we're talking about is acquisition. We haven't even talked about money for demolition, right?
Right.
So I'd say leave the riverboat alone.
At this point, look to take all the other acquisition and removal out of the bond.
Okay, so you're looking at about 50,000 for easement acquisition, you're looking at the Rice property, the Ortiz property, the Mark's Heating and Air property. Right? So,
I wish they were marked on here whose properties they were on the houses. If they're touching that sewer line, they need to touch the...
that's what I'm saying. If I understood what you're talking about, Craig, I think that would be...
We can't tag property that's not touching the sewer line.
No,
And that's what he just listed.
Yeah, the issue, the only question was, are you going to spend some additional city money towards, for example, the Mark and Ortiz property, because not all of that property was needed for
I
the
guess
sewer
my question would be,
project?
what city money do we have to spend?
And I absolutely understand. So,
I have it
So,
broken
if
down.
I think what I'm hearing is that you all feel that if the property was being acquired because at least part of that property was needed for the sewer project and running the new line, then you're saying that all should be paid out of the sewer proceeds.
Yeah,
that's what they're
Is that right?
I don't think any...
Now, my question is, it's 50,000, let's say 50,000 for the easements. And then you've got the Ortiz property, that's another 125, and you've got, so what is that, 175, and then you've got another 68 for Rice, 68 too, so...
wait, 175 and 68?
Yeah, so you're looking at, what, 140 or 243? So, I mean, if we spend $250,000 towards the acquisition of right-of-ways and these properties out of the sewer proceeds, is that going to deplete the resources you have available to get this project done?
Well,
To the point you can't do the project?
no,
Okay.
it's not going to jeopardize the project.
Are you still saving money than going down?
Absolutely.
Down First Street.
I mean, without a question, we're saving money and...
Yeah, but it wasn't a
hundreds
$6
of
million
thousands of
project
dollars.
going down the street.
Well, I understand, it wasn't $6
$6
million.
million.
No, but if it's going to cost us...
It's, you were gonna go down the street no
Right,
matter what.
right.
And then you
If it's
moved
going to
up
cost
a
us
lot.
$300,000 to go down this new route, and it was going to cost us $500,000 to go down First Street, we just saved $200,000.
I guess I think right now we just need to focus on the acquisition. We don't even have estimates for demolition or anything like that, so I don't know if we can make any commitments at this point. I mean,
First step is I got to fund the purchase.
We gotta fund the
completion,
purchase.
So I
Yeah,
just,
the question tonight is not about demolition,
Right.
it's just about acquisition.
And when it comes to the demolition, there are certain structures that if push comes to shove, we don't have to demolish every building that we bought the property from to build the project. I mean,
Well,
so there's
you're looking at demolishing Rice and the two
the
garages.
two garages,
So
and
is
that's
that...
it. Everything else that we're talking demolition is really,
Okay, so my question is, that's on top of the $243,000, so what's the
Correct.
cost of the demolition
and
for
honestly,
that?
we're going to look at trying to do that with our own city crews. So we're hoping to be able to just simply pull permits and then the landfill fees and some
you have to rent an excavator.
some of the rentals for equipment. So,
We have a lot more, we have most of the equipment needed.
so
Okay.
So the acquisition amount that we're talking about coming out of the sewer project, it will not impact the project
it's not
itself?
going to jeopardize the project.
Okay.
Okay.
I make a motion then that we purchase the acquisitions that we're talking about, the remaining ones,
Mark's Heating and Air, Ortiz, Rice, and the acquisition of easements.
be paid out of the sewer fund, or bonding.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to pay for
Everything else.
everything else, thank you, and the easements out of the sewer fund. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
You got all that, Phyllis?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Are you good with it?
Yeah.
And, now, is there anything about First Street that we need to discuss?
Yes, yeah, okay. One project, or one parcel is Joe Stanley. Nate, and John, I think, had talked to Nate primarily with Joe, early on, and the discussions were to buy, some ground from, Joe. The problem is that there's a mortgage on the property, and in order to be able to buy it free and clear, we contacted the bank to get assurances that they would give a partial release on the mortgage, and it's a bank not anywhere close nearby, and they had all kinds of requirements, and they're not even guaranteeing that they're going to release it. So we need to kind of revisit that negotiation. Joe is willing to give us an easement, but he doesn't want to just give it for a nominal amount and then not be able to sell it for what he was hoping to get out of the property. And we need the easement, or we need the property. Nate, my question is it preferable that we own the property versus just getting an easement?
I think in the long term it would be, but, I mean, the easement would allow us to move forward in the
Okay.
project. So, if it needs to be staged in such a way that works. in our
Here's what I'm thinking. If we paid $7,500 for the easement, and then we agreed that if he can sell the property free and clear, we'd pay an additional $2,500. If he can't sell it, then we're getting the easement for $7,500 and we're done.
Yeah, and that would essentially be.
I think that's very fair, and I think it's a great idea, Tim. I mean,
That way, you know,
buy into it.
if as long as Joe's willing to do that. I mean, if he can get the property cleaned up as far as getting a partial release of the mortgage, we'll buy it, and that way we own it, because you're saying it's better in the long run to own it as opposed to just have the easement. But if we pay $7,500 and he can't get it to us free and clear, then at least we have the easement. But we have to have something in order to go forward with the project. So that's what I would suggest we consider doing. So
So what do we have to do that?
I just want to make, I'm just saying,
The discussion he wants to have with Joe.
yeah, and I want to make sure I'm on solid ground with you guys
We don't need a
before I do
motion or anything,
that.
he's just making us aware of it, and I think that's...
Yeah, are you guys okay with that?
I'm fine.
Okay, the other thing I would ask is that council make a matter of record that the mayor is the purchasing agent on this, because previously John was, and John's not here now, so we need to make sure that,
I'll make that motion.
okay.
The matter of record that Ken is the purchasing agent.
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second that going forward, that the mayor be...
Purchasing agent. Previously, John had been appointed, but now John's not in office, so we need to clarify that Ken now is the purchasing agent.
We got a motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
There's the same.
It's just tough, like when we say the Joe Stanley part, Craig's not familiar with
Okay,
that house,
yeah.
so I'm
Yeah,
trying
there's
to
a-
point out
there's-
to him where we're at.
Yeah, it's a low-lying area, but it's something, and Joe doesn't necessarily want it, that's why he's willing to sell it. But when we found out,
When he sells the house, the person may not want to buy it because we have an easement.
no. The problem is, he's got a sizable mortgage on the property, and for him to sell the property to the city free and clear of that lien, he has to go to the bank that holds the lien and get their okay to release it.
If they don't release
If they don't release it, we can't buy it without that lien still being on a property we just bought, which we don't want to do. Okay?
Okay.
So what we're saying is, we give us the easement, we'll pay you $7,500 up front for the easement. If you can get the okay from the bank to clean up the lien and get it off of there, we'll buy the ground for an additional $2,500.
So,
Okay? All right.
I thought it was leaning toward we were going to have to buy the house.
No. Joe's been very cooperative,
Right.
and I,
Good.
in fact, I have to say, property owners up and down have been very
He's gonna
cooperative.
get
so-
7,500 or 10,000 based on his bank.
We'll give him, we'll
Right.
make sure he gets a minimum of 7,500. He may get 10 if he can get the bank to agree to release the lien.
And we get the easement.
And, but we have to have at least an easement, if not outright
Sure.
ownership. We don't want to own it if we can't get it free and clear,
Sure.
okay?
Okay, before we go any further, Nate, are there any questions that you have or comments?
Questions I have as far as the chamber easement, and if we have had any updates from...
I need to get together, Mike,
Parking lot.
yeah, I'll try to get ahold of Mike. I've got to talk to
They're
Mark.
okay with signing it.
Yeah, it's just, we weren't sure who had authority to sign. I think Mike is the
Mike,
president.
He is the president.
So he would be the one that would sign. I want to sit down with Mark Beaumont. He had asked to take out some things in the building, and I want to make sure that he understands we don't want that.
We don't want the building.
We want the building because we don't want to tear it down.
That he doesn't need to get the stuff out right
So
away.
if, I want to make sure that he's okay with not taking some of the stuff out, because I don't know if he understood, I don't know if John told him, well, we're going to tear it down, so if you want something in it, just go ahead and take it out. I don't know what was said.
We don't want an abandoned building.
We don't want it abandoned, so we don't want a bunch of stuff taken out of it. So I want to sit down with Mark and make sure he's okay with that. Because what he gave me was, he was going to, there's some decorative tile on a couple of the floors that he was going to take out. Well,
The old tin
Between,
yeah.
between the First Street sewer project and these last few days with the Senate bill situation, Tim has been,
Jeez, cranky.
on the payroll quite regularly the last few days.
One more question on that Ortiz property. You're going to close on that, right?
Yes,
Pretty quick.
yes.
Well,
I'm going to try to talk to them to see if I can encourage them to leave as much as...
Right. Try
Yeah,
to keep the windows in the thing
Yeah.
so we don't have a...
I know.
Correct.
That was,
You agree with this?
the negotiations were that they could take it out, and I wasn't involved in that.
But we didn't tell them that they had to be out by a certain closing date or anything, did we?
I don't have the agreement in front of me, but they have the right to retain possession of the garage up until, I think, the end of this month, and then we have the right to tear the garage down, because that's what we need for the sewer.
Alright.
They have the right to retain the house for a later period, because they still have stuff in there that they need to get out. So it's kind of a progression of when they give
Have they
up
moved out?
possession.
Are they gone?
I don't know.
But
I don't
John
think
gave
so.
them the...
John understood that the building was going to be torn down, so they said, well, if you're going to tear it down, we'd like to take some stuff out. John says, go for it.
Maybe we ought to just tell them we don't really need to tear it down.
I'd rather not drive by and see the front door gone.
I understand, but
We're kind of at the mercy, though, of them now.
they have the right.
That's the deal we
That was the
signed.
deal that was entered into.
I did have about a 2-hour meeting with the Arts Council last week, and and there was definitely
Couple
some
extra
interest.
badges.
I mean,
Using the...
yeah, I mean, just the concepts, and they were thinking, I don't know, I mean, it's going to come at a cost, but I don't know.
That must be the reason why I was contacted, but this is off the record, that- by Mary wanting to know if we've been talking about booting them out of Third Street. And I said, no, we haven't had any talk about any such thing, you know, it's
Why would we
Never
never
been mentioned.
thought about that?
Well, no, the Parks Department,
right. She says, I understand the Parks Department interested in taking this building over. And I said, well, long-term, maybe,
It should
but
fall
that wouldn't
apart.
be for at least a couple of years, I would guess. You know, because we can't build anything on that green space there for another couple of years.
I'll fill you in later.
So she calmed down.
If we can get a better...
I'll fill you in later.
Okay.
Great.
Any other business? Nate, you got anything else?
No, I'm aware of. I think what we're looking at, I mean, John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we're still looking at trying to go out for
I do
permitting
think she likes you.
next month. I mean, as far as progress, I think this has given us a very good position to be in. I had a meeting today with a wetland expert talking about more wetland permitting, and I think he's going to submit me a proposal to do delineation prior to next Tuesday's meeting, so hopefully I can present that. He's telling me 30 to 60 days for permit approval as far as wetland work, which will cover us from north to south with the Army Corps of Engineers and DNR. So we finally have our scope to the point where we're feeling good about putting the project out for bid in the next, probably spring break, March 1st. I mean, is that too soon to say? Well,
We got to get the survey.
okay, we still want to do
the survey to get
That's true.
a month after we get
we-
the survey, the latest.
John brought up to me that because of our negotiations with Macklin, looking at First Street, not having access to their property, we did not do topographic survey immediately behind their building, which means we have a gap as far as what the bank slope looks like for design. To look at our alternatives and how we're doing this directional boring, we want to know what the surface topography is like. So I've asked Miller Surveying to give me a quote to add to their survey, because I've done all the rest of the survey work. We've had them do little pieces of additional work. He's given me a proposal for $975 to do additional survey work there behind the old paint shop in their building, so we can look at the alternatives for design. So I guess I wanted to bring that up. It's not so much money that I couldn't approve that essentially directly, but to bring that up before we go ahead and move forward on that.
It's long-term grand plans, probably it's more beneficial that
It'll limit our risk essentially, and part of what they're looking at is saying if we go without it and then there's an issue, we could essentially be culpable for it, and it will help keep kind of the unknowns down when we're doing design there. So,
Good idea.
it wasn't something, we would have done it earlier, but because we were still early in the negotiations, we didn't want to have our contractor essentially trespassing behind the project.
Okay, one other thing related to the Macklin easements. This was brought up in our discussions with Steve a week or two ago. One of the things that he had talked to Mayor Schultz about was there's an alley that runs from First Street towards the river between two of his lots, and he asked that be vacated. That way he owns the property if he wants to put a building on it, or if he wants to put a parking lot there, he has the right to do that.
Macklin.
Steve Macklin. And that's part of what they're saying they are requiring in order to give the easements that we need. So the question was, we said, well, if we do that, we would at least like to retain ingress and egress back to our sewer line. But he raised the point, and I don't know if this is an issue or not, since we're buying the Appler property immediately to the south, can we simply access the sewer line from that property as opposed to retaining an easement over the alley? And I guess my question is there a problem with that?
We could simply access it from the property that we own. The only reason for the easement is that if there's interest in trying to sell the Appholder property as part of the Loshi property in the future. As long as it stays retained by the city, we'll access it across city grounds. It's not an issue.
We're buying it anyway for future use by the city, so I don't think it's an issue, but I didn't...
That could save us $5,000 too, couldn't it? Not that that's a lot, but I mean, it's because we wouldn't need, the alley wouldn't become an easement.
Well, we don't have to pay, that's, what was negotiated as far as the pricing included that without charging an extra easement for that.
Right.
Yeah.
So if that's the sticking point and there's no interest in selling those properties, the only thing I would just want to make a point is that if we're ever interested in trying to sell that...
Well, if you sell it, then you would need to designate the easement and record it at that point.
Prior to that.
Right.
It's just, while we're doing the work, if we wanted to record the easements, we
The only
know what it
question
means
is
when we don't.
that doesn't create a problem.
It shouldn't create a problem for us in this project.
As you can see, all these negotiations were a little bit unique.
No.
They all had little twists in trying to deal with that, and so we're trying to get access to what we need and still satisfy the people or the owners. So,
If there's nothing else, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, taking you away from your families. And Sorry about that, but thank you for your service. So, we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Adjourn. All in favor, I guess.